So you want to learn how to wheelie your bike? Well, today I'll talk you through some of the fundamental things you need to do, but also address some of the common mistakes that stop people from nailing their wheelies. All right, so wheelies can be a little bit daunting to learn, getting the front wheel sky high in the air. But there's a few things you can do as safety defenses from stopping you from crashing. The first one is finding yourself a slight uphill climb, not much at all, but just a bit of a bank so that you have to pedal into it. You're not just gonna roll along on the flat. Also, I would definitely recommend doing this on flat pedals. If you've got clips, it adds another layer of danger to doing this. So even if you're normally riding clips, try and find yourself some flat pedals for learning how to wheelie. And also, if you don't know which one your back brake is, make sure you find that out first. You can wheelie any sort of bike. Some of them are easier than others, and today I'm on one that is relatively easy to wheelie. This is an enduro mountain bike, so I've got a short stem, my bars are relatively high. It's kind of rearward biased already, so it's easier for me to get back and lift the front wheel, but you can wheelie any bike. To do this, I'm gonna have my saddle nice and high in my efficient pedaling position, and I'm gonna hover one finger on my back brake. So I run my brakes UK style. I probably didn't need to explain I was in the UK, because actually, look, no, it's not night time. This is the middle of the day in winter in the woods. So I'm going to attempt my wheelies riding up the slight incline. I'm sure we've all tried wheelies before, and I guess one of the most common problems is getting the front wheel high enough. And there's a few reasons why that is, but one of the main reasons is thinking about what gear you're in. So I don't want to go too light on the gearing and be spinning my feet too fast. I want it to be, relatively high resistance I'm pedaling against, so that when I pedal it in to the wheelie, I then speed up a little bit, and then I'm in the nice cadence that I want to be pedaling in. So spinning my feet at my natural speed. So going into the wheelie, it wants to be slightly below that. If you're spinning your feet too fast, when you lift your front wheel, you're going to run out of power straight away. So either you need to slow down or put it in a harder gear. I would recommend practicing this at about walking speed, so you're not going too fast, and then match your gear to that speed. Right, to get a good front wheel lift, you need a combination of two things. It's putting the power into the pedals and then speeding up a little bit, but it's also a movement of weight as well. Put those two things together in the right sort of timing and combination, your front wheel will come up really easily. So I'll talk about how to stop it from coming too high in just a second. But thinking about your weight, like I said, I've got my saddle nice and high, so all I'm gonna do is lower myself to the handlebars a little bit. I'm staying seated, I'm just bending my elbows to bring my chest down to the bars, and as I move back and put the power in, that's gonna pop the front wheel. Timing, the power increase and the weight movement is the thing that's gonna pop your front wheel. So the way I do it is when my right foot comes over the top. So from 12 o'clock forwards into the pedal stroke, that's the same time where I go from being down to then sitting back up. Those two things in combination pop the front wheel nice and easily. Funnily enough, I ride left foot forward normally, so it's actually kind of my weaker foot. As it goes over the top position, that's when the power increases on doing my movement. But I would say try both feet. But it's when it gets to 12 o'clock and goes over the top, that's when you want to move your weight. Okay, common mistake number one is a lot of people know how to pop the front wheel, but actually when the front wheel starts going up, then they lean in towards it because it's kind of scary, front wheels leaving the ground. And actually, if you then bring your weight forward, it does the opposite of what you want it to do. It basically then just stuffs the front wheel back down on the ground. So the real sort of trick to this is learning how to commit to the wheelie, where basically you stay seated and you just tip back with the bike. So I'm going from a relatively, a right angle, my body's fairly straight up with the bike, and then as the front wheel rises, I just sit back with it. So actually, if you look at my back, it will start to tip back with the bike. You have to be fairly committed to do this, and there's a trick I'll talk about in a second which stops you from looping out, from basically going too far back. but basically learning how to sit into the wheelie is probably the most common thing that people aren't doing. An easy way to check if you are leaning back with the wheelie is your arms should be pretty much straight and locked out. That also helps you keep the front wheel straight. Okay, you're up, you're wheeling, jobs are good. Well, there's still a few things that can go wrong and mean you're not wheeling quite as well as you hope. First one, I guess, is you're not putting enough power or weight in and the front wheel just drops again. Oh well, try again. Second one is looping out. So if your front wheel comes up too high, you go beyond the balance point and then you loop out. That's why flat pedals are great, so you can just jump off the back of the bike. And that's why going slow also helps, and potentially somewhere nice and soft. So if you don't land on your feet, you're gonna avoid injury. But normally that's simple enough. You just step off the back in clipless pedals. That makes it way more difficult. And the dreaded loop out clipped in is horrible, so don't do that. But the way to avoid doing that is learning how and when to pull your back brake. And this is first about learning where the balance point is. And this is different for everyone's bike, depending on the geometry, how high or low your bars are. But you can really start to feel it as you power into it. It kind of goes effortless. As your front wheel gets to a certain point, it wants to kind of float there. And that is pretty much the balance point. And that's the best feeling of wheeling, is kind of hovering around that point. And if it goes too low, you power back into it. But if it goes too high, then you need to pull your back brake. Initially, just grab it. It's gonna then bring your front wheel straight back down to the ground. But learning how to sort of feather the rear brake just enough to keep it, you know, on that balance, or bring it back below it, and then you power it back up and then you brake. So it's a matter of two things, you know, learning how to pedal into it and then to brake and just hover around that balance point. Right, I'm trying to talk you through in real time what I'm doing. So it starts off with power and weight, and then perfect balance point. Brake, powering, brake. Hopefully that kind of shows why a slight uphill gradient works really nice as well. Because if you get it really good, you can just use power and you hover around that balance point and you're not speeding up because you're going uphill. You're staying in the right kind of cadence, your feet are spinning and everything's perfect. You only really need your rear brake if it goes too high. It's much harder on a flat or a downhill. The final thing that can stop you from carrying on doing wheelies forevermore is that your bike goes kind of sideways. And there's a few reasons that might happen. First one might be you're in a really wet, windy forest in the UK, so the wind doesn't help you. Next one is maybe that you're kind of, obviously when you start the wheelie, you're putting quite a lot of power through one foot, through the pedals. And it'll take a little bit of muscle memory to make sure you're getting that right and you're kind of trying to stay central on the bike when you're doing it. The other reason maybe is that your arms are bent and your weight's slightly going off in one direction or the other. However, you will always need to kind of, you know, juggle your weight a little bit to try and keep going straight and perfect. And to do that, I shuffle my hips slightly on the saddle and I will turn the bars a little bit to try and keep going in a straight line. But it's not always perfect and it does definitely get better with practice. Getting really good at the judgment of how much back brake to pull and when is the pro skill for being good at wheelies. It takes lots of practice, but once you've done that, it means you can then freely learn how to manual and do my favourite thing, which is coaster wheelies, where you turn it around and you go down the hill and basically use the pedals or a manual to get up into the wheelie position. And then you just use your rear brake to hover behind the balance point and drag it back the whole time. Don't need to pedal, just use your rear brake. That is so much fun. Am I too old for wheeling? I don't think so. Extra wheelie tips. Don't grab your front brake. I see a lot of people do that. When the front wheel comes up, let the front wheel spin. It actually helps you keep your balance. That gyroscopic effect keeps you going straight, but also then, if you do need to sort of save it from going too sideways, turn the front wheel makes a big difference. Number two, if you're on an e-bike, go down on the power. It's actually really hard to do it in full power because the kind of your room for error gets much smaller. So go down to maybe your lowest power setting or maybe the second one up. So you've got enough to get the front wheel up, but not so much, you're just gonna want to loop out all the time. Number three, make sure your rear brake works before you try the wheelie, because you might learn from embarrassment like I did that, oh, hang on, it's a bit wet, well, there's mud in it. Didn't work quite as well as I hoped, and I'm laying on my back looking at the sky. Number 4, I've said it already, but the type of bike you're on can make it easier or hard to learn the wheelie. If you're on a cross-country bike with low bars and it's long, it's gonna be hard. If you're on a hard tail with high bars, then that's perfect, that's nice and easy. Number 5, finally, learn how to loop out. So make sure you're going slow. If you start going too fast and have to jump off, it can get a bit sketchy. But a lot of people don't quite get enough commitment with the wheelie, so go over-committed, nice and slow, learn how to loop out and learn exactly where that balance point is. All right, wheelie fans, get out there, get practicing, send us your videos, get involved in the comments. If you still can't do it, if you've got any more questions, I will try and jump in there and answer them down below.